All right. How can you tell the difference between a doe buck and mature buck beds? I'm not great at looking at tracks yet, and it's hard for me to tell if it's 100% a buck bed, unless there is rubs in the bed.
Um, yeah, I judge by the size of the bed usually, and is in location. Um, Depending, of course, in hill country, it's going to be leeward sides and points and stuff like that. And in marshes, it's to me, it seemed like the tree furthest in, the furthest
That's
one.
truth to that.
And yeah, so and as far as the size of the tracks, for sure, four finger is. I feel pretty good that it's going to be a shooter buck for me.
So for me, what it is you can look at the bed. A buck is a solitary animal. They live by themselves. They don't live in groups. Does live in groups. Does will bed in circles. They bed a little higher up at a hill, like towards the tops, where the bucks are on the leeward edge, right at that thermal tunnel. And when you're in swamps or farm or whatever, that buck is going to be right on the edge of the thick, or into the thick a little bit, or the does are going to be just into the open a little bit. A buck is always going to have a bed where he's got some, well, not always, but most of the time, he's going to have an obstacle to his back, the wind to his back, and he's going to be looking downhill. You can get in the bed, you can see what he's looking at. Sometimes they get in thick cover surrounded by thick. But the thing that tricks people is does, especially solitary does, will use buck beds. They're not just used by bucks. So when a doe's bedding solitary, it'll use a buck bed. Now, with mature bucks, it gets a little bit different because buck bedding areas, like if you go into, like I say, I'm thinking about a local marsh near my house that I hunt a lot. I might know where there's 100 different buck bedding areas. About 15 of those are used by mature bucks. Once they get to a certain age, they will only choose certain types of bedding areas. And you should see that with the sign, with the size of the rubs and stuff. And the rubs should be in the beds. I mean, if you have rubs around a bedding area or in a bedding area, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a buck bedding area. It can mean that there's bucks coming there during rut to mate with does. But when the rubs are right in the beds, that's usually bucks claiming those beds. And then you can look at the size of it, obviously. And as Gary alluded to, the size of the bed and the size of the tracks can tell you a lot too. But that the biggest thing is that doe groups do not bed with obstacles to their back. They don't bed in relation to the wind. They bed in a circle, and they each look a different direction, and they watch out for each other. They're group animals, where a buck is a solitary animal. He's worried about number one. He could care less about everybody else. He's just worried about himself. He only comes together with a group to mate or in a small, short time when they're in velvet. So you should be able to look at the buck, and if you understand how a buck is, you should be able to see the bed and understand that that's a buck bed just by looking at the bed. Generally, with a really mature buck, when you get into a good bedding area, there's a wow factor. There's a like, holy crap, this thing's living right here. How the hell would I ever kill this thing? He's got everything he needs here. How would I get close to it? He's going to see me from over there. He's going to smell me from over there. There's usually a specific reason where you don't get that vibe when you come into a doe bedding area.
Yep. I ran into it. I was walking on a ridge today and came upon a real big bed. It looked like it maybe could be a buck laying there. And then I walked 5 yards more, and then there was another one. And then I started looking around, and you could see it was a doe group just bedding on the side of a ridge. But
have you seen it though, where like on a point where it seems like a buck will have two different beds according to wind?
Oh yeah, they'll bed. Matter of fact, a lot more than two. In a lot of cases, they'll bed all the way around a point, and depending on keeping the wind leeward, they'll move. And I've actually been on points and watched bucks rise from one bed and go to the other as the winds change. I've watched it happen.
That's awesome.
Call it shifting. They get up and they shift from one bed to the other.
Hey everybody, if you like the channel, make sure you subscribe right here. And if you like the clips, I got 2 more options for you. 2 options right here. Subscribe right here. See you guys.